Dun, dun, dun. What's on TV? I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Hey, this is Chris Gore. You're listening to Dr. Gonzo Radio on Dr. Gonzo Piqua something.com. I don't know. What am I supposed to say?
Yeah, we'll have Zach. I'll have Zach do the next bumper.
So, hey, Dr. Gonzo's here.
Put a dime in him, you gotta let the whole song play out.
He's like human jukebox.
Oh, he's a talker, ain't he?
He's an old fat grandpa man.
Our parents were the greatest generation. Our dads went overseas to fight a war. As soon as they came back, they grabbed our moms and hit the sack, and there they stayed from 1946 to 64. Making babies.
Lots of babies.
The baby boomers.
76 million.
And we grew older, but we're not dead yet.
Hail to the king, baby.
And one thing, Brett, to talk about our first topic that a lot of people aren't talking about. You have great minds like Culture Casino, the guys who really crunch the numbers, and Tom Connor and all those guys who really know the numbers really well. And I got to tell you, that's why I work. I don't mind telling people I work a job, man. I had a choice to go out with a couple of big name acts as drummer. I turned them down because it wasn't steady work. I wanted steady work to keep a roof over my head. I'm a janitor, and I'm okay with that, Brett, because, hey, I toured the world for over 2 decades. I've been to every country, Europe, UK, all those places. That's why it was cool at the Vegas party to see Disc Brew, because we talked about England. I love England. Mm-hmm. Been there a lot. So I did everything I want to do. Now I want to have a job and still do this because it's a voice for boomers. But I can tell you, even in the factory that I work in, Britt, there are people that come and go that are quitting. And I'm talking about adult people. It's like, how do they provide a roof over their heads? There's a ton of jobs out there, but yet people don't want to work. And it's expensive to go to the theater. We only have Cinemark here, which is good. My kids, God bless all 4 of them, they give me the Fandango at Christmas. That usually lasts me till my birthday, March 2nd, and we're coming up to Father's Day. So they get me through the year. But I can go on a senior discount day on Tuesday for $5.
Yeah.
I can go see a movie for $5 with popcorn and an icy. That's $20.
Right.
But you know what? I spent $93 on groceries yesterday.
Yeah, I know. I know how that goes.
Nothing, dude.
I know. There's nothing left at the end of the month. There's a stat that came out the other day that most people in America, the highest percentage since recorded history, are just living paycheck to paycheck. So there's no more room for extras. I read something else a couple of weeks ago about how you need to make something like $75,000 now if you have a family in order to take them to Olive Garden. You know, Olive Garden used to be like the cheap place that you took a date, the affordable place that the middle class could go out and have a satisfying meal. Everything's expensive because gas is really expensive. And then you've got the transport. Everything that comes to you and me comes on a truck. And when you've got the price of oil at, $60 to $80 a barrel, sometimes 120, that's when you're going to see that $3 to $4 gas, sometimes $5, $6 in California. So, it's just a tax. It's a giant tax on the economy, and it trickles down into all the goods and all the services. Everybody's hurting. Even fast food is hurting. At this point, you spend as much money at fast food as you would with a sit-down dinner, less the tip. So where do you think people are going to go? They're not going to go to the restaurant anymore. They're going to run through the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A, spend the same kind of money, save the tip. Or they're going to go and pick up the pizza rather than have the delivery guy bring it because they're
$5
scripting everywhere.
Squeezers,
Yeah, it sucks. I remember after, of course, being a Gen Xer, I remember 87. I remember that crash because that hurt my dad's construction business. The 92 savings and loan wipeout, that recession also completely wiped out my dad's construction business and a lot of the small GCs in Phoenix. Only the big builders were left because all of the small construction guys, their main source of funding were the local savings and loan. That's where they go and get construction loans to build stuff on spec.
Right.
So that wiped everybody out. I remember the tech bubble burst. I remember graduating 2 weeks after 9/11 into an absolutely piss poor economy. That completely sucked. So it's like, the Obama years were awful. There was barely any growth. This sucks. This is the worst. This is the worst of all of them. I've often asked my dad, what was the 70s like, with double-digit inflation, double-digit unemployment, and double-digit interest rates, 19%
Gas lines.
interest rates, gas lines, gas rationing, and he said it was awful. It sucked. It was horrible. Everybody was miserable. That's why we had that, Carter's Malaise speech, it's, stagflation. We have stagflation back. That's something that we haven't seen since the 1970s. So yeah, it's one of those things where, sadly, you have to have this amount of pain in order to shake people out of apathy and to figure it out and to say, well, we're not going to vote for that guy again, or we're going to go in an opposite direction. We're going to give the country to the other party. Problem is both parties, there's not a whole lot of difference between the two anymore. So that's left up to who's in the Oval Office, who's leading, who's pushing legislation, who's using that bully pulpit, right? So, and then you got these executive orders. I mean, it's a mess. It's a complete foobar. But,
ruled by fiat. Let me take it from a different aspect because I've been in retail as well.
Yeah.
Brett, this looting, and I mean, when I was in Vegas, everything's behind cabinets,
I believe it.
Everything's locked up, that costs money. That money that those cabinets cost and the cost to install that, they pass that on to the consumer.
Well, what about the insurance
that are paying for that? When you have people come into a Home Depot, Lowe's, or whatever, and just run out with carts,
right,
you are told you do not stop them because you don't want to endanger your life for that. But the loss on the bottom line is going to be passed on to the consumer who is paying for that.
Right.
And that has Walmart. We got a security guard here in Little Piqua, Ohio. I was like, holy crap, this is crazy. And you know what? It affects it at the lowest thing. It affects it. If you buy the Walmart brand, everything is getting in smaller portions.
Yeah.
You get less for your money, because
Yeah.
it all dwindles down. It dwindles down to the millimeter of plastic they put in the bag.
No, shrinkflation is real. You guys also saw it in the 70s. You saw the same thing in the 70s. So these things are just, direct reactions to really, really bad business policy and bad energy policy. Ever since I've seen The Irishman, which is a really good movie. I have some issues with some of the special effects and the de-aging and using an 80-year-old De Niro who's supposed to be acting like he's 20, or something. But the story of Jimmy Hoffa is pretty fascinating. And I understand why people rallied to him because what he was saying was ultimately true, minus his bad business decisions to go into business and finance with the mob, but if you got a truck, if you got it, a truck brought it to you is the line from the movie. And it's so true. Everything comes on either truck or rail. If you raise the cost of transport, it's going to trickle down into everything. But the other thing that that to talk about, to hit on your topic of the prices going up, the portions going down, all that stuff, people looting being a direct reflection. also the insurance that these stores have to have in order to cover maintaining a business. And once the prices hit that kind of peak, and then once the insurance is uninsurable anymore, they bail out. They just take off. The business is gone. And we've already seen that happen in places like San Francisco and places in LA. You know, Casa Vega, this this cultural icon out in the valley in California. It's featured in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's the restaurant that Cliff and Rick go out to towards the end of the movie, and they get really drunk. The night of the ending of the movie, the night of when they confront the Manson family. Have been broken into so many times, and they've had the place almost set on fire because of vandals and bums. They almost got their insurance pulled. They couldn't find an insurance provider, and they finally found somebody, but it's getting too expensive. And the owners were just like, look, when you're not going to enforce the rule of law, where you're just going to let crime go rampant, go wild, you know, this is the direct result. And, you know, places like Casa Vega and even places like Walmart and Walgreens, you know, they're not going to be around much longer if this is going to be the type of policy that is going to be pushed. It's anarchy. It's insane. And you can't do business. Free markets can't work when there's this type of craziness. And Deadwood is a great example of that. Go back and watch HBO Deadwood first season.
I just watched the 20th anniversary plus the movie.
It's
nothing else.
So brilliant. It would never be made today. You know, God bless David Milch, who I think he's having Alzheimer's. He's starting to forget things, which is partially why he pushed so hard to get the movie made, because he knew that in a couple of years, mentally, I'm not going to be able to do this. But the guy is just such a creative force. But one of the things that happened in Deadwood, and this is a historical fact, and it happens in the series, the first year of Deadwood, there was one person a day that was killed, murdered. The business owners finally just said, look, this can't work. We can't have commerce if we have this violent, lawless place. So we need to have some semblance of some infrastructure in a government. So we need a sheriff, we need a refuse, we need a doctor, we need a camp infirmary, we need, Morse code, we need some kind of telecommunications, blah, 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 blah. So they set up this kind of informal government, which also happens in the film. You know, you see it happen or not in the film, but in the TV series. And it's just kind of this, I've always said Deadwood is sort of this beautiful sort of libertarian tale of the Old West, where you needed to, men, if men didn't need governance, they'd be angels, I mean, that's ultimately kind of where humanity is. We're fallen. So we need some kind of government. We need some kind of rule of law, not just some kind of loosey-goosey code that we all go by, So, it's the same today, in these blue cities where these DAs not only allow crime to run rampant, but they don't prosecute anybody. They just let them all out. It's insane. Judges too, they're part of the problem as well. So people are starting to get more, keyed in on local issues, because there's not much you can do about Washington other than every 4 years or every, 4 to 6 years. So it's like, fix the place where you are, get more involved in, the local stuff that's going on, and vote for people who on the local level who see things your way and who believe in law and order and enforcing the law. Right. It's forced people to look, I think, locally more, which I think is a really, really good thing. But it sucks, man. I'd love to be making more money and also spending more money, which are two things that typically happen together. When you're making more money, you spend more. So I'd love to be buying more Blu-rays, obviously, to add to my physical media collection. But I'd also love to go on vacation. I'd love to do all kinds of things, but that takes, more income and stuff like that. So everybody's looking for that, and everybody's hurting. It sucks. But
and there's so many expensive things to buy. Who would have figured? Could you have figured when you were little, getting a phone that cost $800? Dude. That wouldn't have even been a thing with parents. And to circle back on all this and on entertainment, which is what we're about here, is that people are watching older things They're streaming. That's why here on Dr. Gonzo, please check it out. Dr. Gonzo 57, which you're on right now. I have I don't monetize because I have vintage Disney on there.
Yeah, you got
Swamp
some great
Fox
stuff. Yeah.
with Leslie Nielsen. That was based on Francis Marion, who Mel Gibson's character in The Patriot was based upon. Dr. Sin, the Scarecrow. Old Ludwig van Duck, little exercise videos, just fun stuff that you're not going to see. And you know what? Things kind of came full circle with me, Brett. I forgot. I had met Joe Bob Briggs once.
He's great.
I did a book called Pass the Plate and Let Us Pray, Prey, about because I played drums with a lot of famous people. And so when I became a Christian in 1994, these TBN pastors wanted me because of my resume. Well, I had this one pastor who was a famous TBN pastor. I won't mention his name. He kept introducing me as, oh, Tim saved me. He used to play with Frank Sinatra. And I pulled him aside later. I said, Pastor, I've never played for Sinatra. Now I play with Chuck Berry, Gary Lewis. I mean, I have a huge resume, but you don't say you played with Sinatra. I was just in Vegas. Right. You still would not say you played with Frank Sinatra if you did not do that. Number one, it's a lie. I've never even met Frank Sinatra. So I asked him, I said, could you please not say that anymore? So long story short, he said, no, you let me, he was schlepping me out to grift. And so I met Ole Anthony of the Trinity Foundation, who was doing things on Robert Tilton and other hornswogglers like that. And he introduced me to Joe Bob Briggs, who was doing God stuff at the time, which I'm going to start putting that up. Hopefully I'll have an interview with Joe Bob Briggs. I'm trying to wrangle around to try to get him. And Joe Bob was great. And about that same time is when I ran into Chris Gore and Attack of the Show and all Chris's great stuff. And of course, Joe Bob's Drive-In, I think, was first.
Yeah.
And Monster Vision. Yep. And, he liked boobies and naked stuff.
Yeah. It's all that. It's all that.
Around. He's 70 years old now.
All that late night TV that we probably weren't supposed to watch, but stayed up and watched anyway. But yeah, that was great stuff. So Joe Bob is like a real 80s, 90s icon to me. He always pops up, with some of my favorite cult films, lesser known films. He's introduced me to all kinds of different wild stuff that I never would have seen before. So yeah, he's a great guy. I love that dude.
But so people are streaming now. So the cost of streaming, which is going up again, versus going. Brett, I love the experience of a movie theater. We're going to get into a review of Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which was a great movie.
Yeah,
there were 5 people beside myself in there, and it was a great movie. And attendance is down. I know. Now they're bringing. You want to talk about the fandom events? Even are expensive.
Yeah, they are. There's
Chris went to Phantom Menace. I think Aliens, those type of things. So
I went to Dune. I went to Die Hard. These were Fathom events that Cinemark puts on, and they're usually 35, 40-year anniversaries. Transformers, the movie, is coming up this month, I think on the 15th or something. And I'd like to go see it. It's just so expensive. These Fathom events are great, and I understand why the theater does it. To bring stuff back and pull audiences in, specifically my generation, because these are really our films, boomers as well. But they're pricey. They're very pricey, and then you throw in popcorn and a Coke, and you're breaching $50 more than likely. So it's just kind of like, I own it. I have it. I have Transformers the movie. I think I have the DVD. I don't think I have the Blu-ray, but I could watch it at home. And that's kind of the thing. The streaming of the platforms that are doing the best, they're the free ones. It's Pluto, it's Freevee, it's the places where people have to watch ads. So Paul Chatto did an interesting video on this, why streaming destroyed network TV, and his kind of theory, and it's a great video. I encourage people to watch it. It's only like 7 minutes or 8 minutes, but he talks about how the networks and everybody wanted to be Netflix, and that's kind of why they bet the farm on all this stuff, and they abandoned, these institutions that they had built, which were working just fine. They had the network. The networks had their shows, their writers. The schedules were all working. They had the ad revenue, and then all of a sudden, they see Netflix having all this success, and they're like, "Oh, we want to be a Netflix," rather than understanding that they had what Netflix needed, which was content. So why not just farm out your content to that platform rather than create your own platform and sort of abandon, the typical network TV that you've had for, 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, it's kind of insane when you think about it. And I just wonder who made this decision to go all streaming and to bet the farm on this and to put all your eggs in this one basket, because at this point, everything's so sort of disparate. Some people are paying for streaming. Most people are not. Some people have HBO Max. Some people don't. Some people have, everybody's just this a la carte thing has ended up being just as expensive as having a basic cable package, or maybe a cable package with some extras.
Right. Oh yeah. Okay. I saw Paul's video on that. Yeah.
But it's just kind of crazy, man. And I just don't think that it doesn't work from the standpoint of putting out content. You can't really do it fast enough. That's another thing that the networks had down really well. And people are going back, ironically enough, they're going back to what the networks used to do so well by watching all of these old shows, which are the top streaming shows like Seinfeld, like Rockford Files, like Magnum, the classic TV channel or portion of Pluto TV is where I spend the majority of my time. And I just, when I was talking to Graham yesterday, I was interviewing him, we're talking about Dallas, and Dallas is free to watch on Freevee right now. And he's like, "Ooh, I'm going to watch that." And I was like, "Dude, it's awesome. You'll love it." So, the benefit is that you get all this great talent, you get all this great writing, you get 9 to 10 to 12 seasons deep that you can just go for months and watch stuff. So that's not something they've been able to really figure out. Netflix can't do that. They can't crank out stuff, that fast, and on that kind of regular basis. It's like you and I, we'd watch stuff all year, and then the networks would take the summer off to film new stuff, right? It's like Who Shot JR? That was the cliffhanger, and then people had to wait like 4 months while they shot that season. But it's how you could sort of have this regular schedule of new entertainment coming out all the time, and it just doesn't seem to be conducive with the streaming format, or at least yet.
And they're very clever, and they're very bait and switch. I dumped Disney, but I got Hulu because I wanted to watch Shogun, which was a great series.
Yeah.
And I encourage people also to watch the original with Richard Chamberlain from the 80s. You can buy that in a box set on eBay for like $25-$30, and have that physical media. But, just when you're going to get, like I was going to give up on Netflix because they're pretty woke about a lot of stuff. And then I watched Unfrosted yesterday, the Jerry
I want to see that
thing, and that was excellent. And that was belly. Have you seen that yet?
I haven't, but I want to watch it. And it's also I just saw
funny.
I just saw the preview for Cobra Kai, the final season, and I want to watch that too. So I haven't given up on Netflix yet, but it's like, how long have we waited for Cobra Kai? Part of that is because of the strike, but it just seems like we didn't wait 2 years. We didn't wait a year for like a new season of the Cosby Show or of Family Ties or of Dynasty or of Seinfeld. It just takes too long for these guys to produce this stuff and then get it back out. And then they dump it all at once, which I think is a complete waste. They should segment it out in order to have free promotion. People go out and they talk about it. It's one of the brilliant things that I witnessed about Game of Thrones. And that's how I got into Game of Thrones, was everybody was talking about it. Oh my God, what's going to happen next week? You don't get that when you dump everything at once. So, these methods that they use are they're just dumb. Like, it's just stupid. Like, are these DEI hires? Are they the ones who were like making all these decisions, or what? I've just never seen just such ludicrous decision making.
No spoilers about Unfrosted, but the unique thing about It's definitely a Jerry Seinfeld deal.
Mhm.
Is he took people that I do not like Amy Schumer and
Yeah.
all that, and she's really good in this. I gotta say it. She's very, very good in it, you know.
Nice.
So it can, what I'm saying is it can be done. And
Yeah.
there's so at the movies, do you remember when you know there was like the big Star Wars, when it was the big movie of the year?
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have just a dog pile of movies to watch. Sure, you had smaller ones like in my time would have been Soylent Green, Omega Man,
Mhm.
stuff like that. You know, Planet of the Apes, the originals with Charlton Heston. Now
Yeah.
they're cranking out these movies, and then people are basically waiting just till they go out on streaming
Yeah.
because COVID conditioned so many people to just stay in the house.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
that whole theater experience is a beautiful thing.
no, it is. It is. I mean, there's so many movies that just, are meant to be experienced on the big screen. It's theater attendance was going down before COVID, and a lot of it is price. A lot of it is, a lot of it is theater etiquette. It's one of the things that drove me out of the theater for a number of years was people just not behaving in the theater, meaning not being on their best behavior, not being respectful of others, and ruining their cinematic experience, which is really expensive. But when you've got people on their phones, when you've got people, talking and bullshitting during the movie and being some kind of mystery science theater peanut gallery, I do, and then to make matters worse is that when you go to the theater owner or the manager and you tell them of what's going on, and at this point your movie experience has already been ruined because you've got to get up out of your seat and go and get an usher or get a theater manager, they don't do anything about it. They don't boot people out like they used to. In the 80s or the 90s, if you were dicking around in a theater and acting like an asshole, you would get kicked out. They would come and they'd ask
You had the usher that came through regularly with the flashlight
with the
pointed
flashlight.
down, who was checking out stuff and who would get him out the door. But
Yeah.
again, it's a lack of respect to law and order. Yeah, a lack of
Yeah.
respect for the other person. It's
People,
like the
yeah.
society we're in.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a direct reflection of that. But people, this casual, this kind of ultra casual atmosphere that has infected our culture from the standpoint of people wearing flip flops on the plane, or out in public, or or wearing their pajamas to Walgreens, or wearing their pajamas on a plane. It's a direct reflection of what goes on in the theater, where people basically treat the theater like it's their living room. And it's not. It's not your living room. Okay, that's a public place. You need to be respectful of others. You need to be on your best behavior, right? People munching on popcorn and candy and stuff like that. I accept that those are things that are just going to happen, and I deal with them and I tune them out. But if I got somebody next to me or across from me or in front of me on their phone, and I can see this big blinding light, coming out of it, that's bullshit, man. And people should get booted. I know Alamo Drafthouse here in Texas, they will kick your ass out fast, and they have the ushers that come in and monitor. But not many theaters do that anymore. And because of that, they'll typically come and they'll say something. If you go and get an usher, they'll come in and they'll say, please stay off your phone, ruining people's experience, blah, 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 blah. It's just not enough. There's no consequences. So you can't expect people to act on their best behavior when there's no consequences. But that's one of the things that I think also makes it hard for people like me who grew up going to the movies to go back. It's hard to go back when you have to deal with shit like that, especially when you're paying an arm and a leg just to go to the movies in itself. And then you run the risk of having that experience ruined because some loudmouth, there's some jerk that can't stay off their phone. It sucks.
Yeah, and then they have to deal with guys like me who are grumpy old men at 67 years old and not afraid to say, hey, I will come back there and open a can of shut the F up if you don't shut your yaps.
Well, I've done that.
My dad voice. And I've told them, and they kind of laugh and snicker. Then I'll stand up and I said, Test me.
Well, I've done that. And what ended up happening was, and these were teenagers, what ended up happening was their parents yelled at me when I walked out of the theater. They said, "How could you curse at children?" And all I told this guy was, "Stay off your phone. I came here to watch the movie, not your fucking phone." And that's how I said it to him, you know, but I said fucking, and that's ultimately why they accused me of cursing at children. And these were not children. These were young men that should have known better, but their parents are a bunch of children as well who haven't taught their kids how to be adults, how to be young men, because they don't act like adults, you know? So it's one of those things where it's just sort of like, yeah, you can say something and you can be Clint Eastwood, you can be the grumpy old man, you know, because I'm the same way, dude. But it doesn't mean that it's going to make a difference in any sense, you know. And that's another reason why I think people have invested more in the home theater and the sound bar and the nice big flat screen TV, and they just watch stuff at home, man, because, you know, you can control that environment and you can control that experience, and you can have a better experience in a lot of ways from the standpoint of having an immersive experience, you know, whereas in the theater, yeah, you've got this giant screen, you got the surround sound, you should be having an immersive experience, but the people around you are just don't have any respect for, you know, that kind of thing.
And I can't picture seeing Civil War. I have a pretty good size color TV that my kids gave me, and I can't see watching Civil War in my home because, I mean, I did a review on it. It was, I still think they were lefties on that, but be that as it may, the Alex Garland's really good at some of the war scenes, man. It was loud, man. You hear those planes flying overhead. You can't get that. Godzilla -1. You can't get that at home.
Yeah.
And they still have not released that for home consumption. But on the positive side, we got about
Hail to the king, baby.
What the hell are you two doing? That's called rocking out. You wouldn't understand, Dad. You're not with it. I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you.
And this is Dr. Gonzo for all you baby boomers. Hey, like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you right around the corner.